Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. I am your host, Kris, and we have quite a bizarre show for you this evening. That's the only way we can use it because there's only two of us. I'm joined by my regular podcast husband, Mr. John Welsh. Good evening, John.
Evening, mate.
It's just the two of us, mate. Everyone's run away. It's very disappointing.
It's that time of year they all want a day off.
It is, isn't it? It seems to be the way. But we'll do our very best to bring you all of the roundups from our usual leagues and throw in a little bit of chatter throughout. Now, to give you a heads up, boys and girls, we're going to do the podcast a little bit differently this week because there's only two of us. We're going to kind of have a little bit of an informal chat about our leagues that we follow, as well as some of the leagues that are not sort of too well known to us, if you will. There'll still be the onion bag. There'll still be the Hipsters Choice, and we will still have time to discuss things like the Ballon d'Or list and the Champions League and Europa League draws, so all that good stuff, but it will just be slightly different format. Now, straight off the bat, we do have an announcement. It's a sad announcement, unfortunately, to start the show, but we'll go straight there. Unfortunately, Tom has left the podcast with immediate effect. Don't get me wrong, it's all absolutely fine. It's all amicable. Tom's got an awful lot of things on at the moment, namely with work and projects that he's focusing on at the moment. So it is with deep sort of sympathy, really, that we lose Tom from the pod. And I'm sure myself, and I'm sure you join me as well, John, in saying that we thank Tom for his hard work over the months and over the years, of course, many
Absolutely.
episodes together. So we wish Tom well, but nevertheless, the show must go on. And we will say at this point, we've had a little chat. There may potentially be an opening for someone to join the podcast. Obviously, if you are interested in coming aboard with us, it is a commitment. It's I think John will agree. It can be a tough assignment at times, and we must insist, obviously, that you have a real passion for Spanish football and indeed La Liga. So if you think that could be you, and you have a decent headset and nice bit of internet connection, because we couldn't have it any other way, Danny would shoot us. But if you've got a good internet connection and you're of a passionate person of the Spanish persuasion football wise, please do drop us an email. We haven't made up our minds when we're going to look to get somebody on board, but it's something we have discussed and something we're probably going to do. So if that interests you and you think you could be the man or woman to join our podcast, please do drop us an email, thefootballhipsterspodcast@gmail.com, and myself or one of my colleagues will get back to you in due course. Right, that's the admin out the way then. Let's crack on with the show, and we're actually going to start this week in Spain, and it's this week's La Liga. Okay, John. So, as I said, this is going to be a little bit random, a little bit bizarre. We're going to do things slightly differently this week across our various leagues. And I'm going to kind of rattle through the hosting duties and then just get your thoughts as we run through. So, the La Liga weekend kicked off last Monday. We were podcasting during this game. Deportivo were winning at the time. They ended up beating Sociedad 5-1. So we should give that a quick mention. But we'll look at the weekend's action. Barcelona won at Osasuna by 3-0. Don't know how much, if anything, you might have seen of this game, but they struggled for long periods of this game and then kind of blitzed Osasuna in the second half with those 3 goals. Do you still get the impression that they're in the title race, given the fact that Madrid currently hold a 6-point advantage?
It's always hard to tell in a Liga because it's those head-to-head games. They don't completely decide the league, but generally the head-to-head between Real Madrid and Barcelona are the sort of the real points difference maker. Excuse the pun, but 6 points is a big gap at the moment. The thing with Barcelona is that they have got so much quality that you can never really truly write them off. Obviously, you've got the winter break coming, and although they did struggle a little bit at the start of this game, it's kind of been a theme this season with not just Barcelona, but pretty much every team in the Champions League this year. I don't know why this season in particular, but most clubs after their midweek fixtures in Europe have really struggled when they go back to their league campaign, which is something that has blighted some teams in the past, but not necessarily the bigger clubs. But you've seen it even with the likes of Bayern Munich. It's happened to Real Madrid before. Happened to Juventus as well in Italy. PSG looked a little bit sluggish after European games as well. So I don't know why this season in particular, but that certainly might have had an effect on their performance.
Yeah, we will definitely touch on PSG a little bit later on in the pod, that's for sure. But Barcelona winning that game kind of put the pressure on Real Madrid, who faced Deportivo in the Saturday evening game. Now, I must confess, this entertained me. I have to hold my hands up. I did enjoy this. They won by 3-2. Could you have a wild guess, if you don't already know, that the game is 2-1 to Deportivo? Real Madrid get a late equaliser through one of their youth products, actually, Mariano, who was very good in pre-season. I don't know if you watched any of that tournament over in the US where they had all those clubs all over the place playing over there. I think Inter were part of it actually briefly. Didn't they lose to Spurs 5-0? I think they did, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, bad memories. But during that tournament, this young Mariano sort of made the breakthrough and looked pretty decent. He got his first Real Madrid goal to equalise on 84 minutes. So here's the scene. It's the Bernabeu. Fans are on edge. It's 2-2. We're in stoppage time. They get a corner. Who do you think pops up with the winner?
Oh, it's got to be Ramos then, if it's last minute.
Bingo. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact you genuinely didn't know that, and it was the guess that you'll bang on.
I genuinely did not know that at all.
It was big Sergio. He doesn't have a habit of this. It's taking the result aside. It's a 3-2 victory for Real Madrid. But let's talk about Ramos. I mean, he's kind of maligned in some quarters. People say he's not really a defender. He's very much of the new school defenders that he likes to get on the ball. He does like a bit of play acting. He's a bit of a pantomime villain, much like Pepe, in fact, his defensive partner. But I mean, he's a real winner, isn't he? Like, he's a proper player you want on your side when your team is pushing for a result. And time again, he puts in a captain's performance. Do you rate him as a fan of Italian football and old school defenders? Do you think he has a place in one of Europe's greats?
I do really like him as a defender. I think he gets a lot of stick, but the problem is that the people often criticising him are those who don't necessarily watch LaLiga. The defending is going to be different there, and the style is going to be different. It's the same as if you watch Italian defenders. You're going to see certain things that you think, oh, you'd never get away with that in the Premier League. How is that even remotely fair? But that's just the way they do in Italy, and it's the same in Spain. But like you said, like Ramos, he's definitely from that new school. Like Koscielny in the Premier League is one. I'm trying to think of SerieA. Romagnoli, the young lad at Milan, is maybe a little bit like it. Good on the ball, like to bring it out, can play it around. Perhaps not the hard tackling, tough, say like a John Terry type, like you used to. But he's still got that captain's fire and passion, and always turns up with the important goals. Obviously, playing against La Coruña is not a big game. But being 2-2 and at home at the Bernabeu, conceding 2 goals, they won't be pleased about that. But winning the game is what's important, and keeping that gap from Barca. So he just always puts the performances in. Yes, I know sometimes he does have a habit of getting a red card, and that's maybe where he goes overboard with the passion. But no, I really like him. I think he's a great player, and I forget, is he mid-20s still? Because he seems to have been around for absolutely forever.
Do you know? I think he's in his 30s now. I will check it.
He
is 30. He is 30, so he's not actually
30.
old.
Yeah.
I thought he was 32, so he is younger. He was born in 1986, 30th of March, so he's not far off 31. Which the fact it makes him 3 years younger than me is really quite disturbing.
Yeah, but he has been around for absolutely forever, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. He joined Madrid in 2005 from Sevilla. Yeah. He's only ever been at 2 clubs. So he's won quite a lot as well. Have a look at that trophy cabinet. It's quite substantial. But you're right, he's one of those that I want to hate him, but I can't. I agree. He's one of those. If you've got him in your side, you love him. But nevertheless, a win for Real. Two very good goals from Deportivo on the counter-attack in that game, by the way. Joselu with both, 2 in 2 minutes. They were cruising. Morata's goal also very, very good. Very much like Juventus. I think it was in the Super Cup last season against Milan, was it?
Yeah.
Extra time. Very similar sort of style finish for that curling in the far corner. So good result for Real, and that extends their lead back to 6 points after Barca's win. Well, we touched on Sevilla briefly there. And a Bora hat-trick got them the points in Vigo, who were, albeit hot off the press of a Europa League game, so you kind of have to think that had an issue with the legs, whereas Sevilla had the extra day's rest after their midweek game with Lyon. Good result that for Sevilla. They're only a point behind Barcelona. Random question for you, but do you think they can sustain the challenge in La Liga as well as a Champions League tie? Because we'll touch on the draw later on, but they've drawn Leicester City. Surely that's a tie they'll look at and fancy. So can they sustain a challenge on all fronts?
That tie is actually quite interesting to me, because what Leicester did last year that was so impressive was just hitting on the counter and giving the other team possession, and Spanish teams like to have the ball in possession. Sevilla are particularly good at that. They are very solid defensively, though, so I can see both legs Sevilla having lots of the ball and time on the ball, and Leicester trying to work very hard. So I'm not sure. I don't think it will physically exert them, but I think Leicester might throw a spanner in the works, and maybe can get a result. As for their league campaign, I mean, I don't see why not. The big shock this season, obviously, is that Atletico are so far down the table, and that third spot is really up for grabs. And Sevilla look like the team definitely to take it. I don't think it's realistic to think they're going to jump over Barca. I know Barca have had their blips and stuff, and they had that run of a couple of draws, but you know that eventually they're going to hit form, and with the front three they've got, they're going to score so many goals that they will win games. So, but that third spot's definitely there for Sevilla to take it if they can, and that'd be a great season for them. I don't really see them getting further than maybe the quarter-final to the Champions League if they get past Leicester, but it's probably one of the better ties they could have got.
Yeah, agreed. The 15th of January at the Roman Sanchez Pizjuan Stadium is Sevilla versus Real Madrid. So that will probably be quite the big test, because of course they go on the winter break, and then I think, from memory, it's their second game back. They've got one more game before the winter break, then they play Sociedad on the 7th of January, and then it's Real Madrid up next. So, in fact, Sociedad, that's another big game, because they're currently 5th as well. So we shall see. It'll be very interesting to see if Sampaoli plays in the Champions League the way he did against Celta, which is a 3-4-2-1 formation. Different, that, like it. Sami Nasri playing deeper in that game as well. Very strange. So we'll see how they get on. Just sort of whipping through a couple of the results. Malaga with a 1-1 draw with Granada on the Friday night. A good result, as you mentioned, for Sociedad there. 3-2 victory over Valencia, whose problems continue. Crikey, they aren't half a clown car club, aren't they? My goodness. 2-0 up, Sociedad through William Jose. Dani Parejo got one back. Juanmi got the third in stoppage time, and Bakali got a stoppage time goal back for Valencia, but wasn't enough. 17th in La Liga now, Valencia. We know all about a club in Italy that have a very similar bipolar-esque situation going on. I guess the most polite way I can put it. What, in your opinion, from an outsider looking in, is it going to take for Valencia to once again be even taken seriously in European football?
It's so bizarre, because I know they've lost players, and they had the managerial change and the sort of the Gary Neville adventure with his brother. Is Phil still there? I can't even remember now.
No, I think he's gone now. He's back in the Match of the Day studios.
Oh, well, there you go. So I'm not quite sure what direction the club's supposed to be going in, or if there is a clear message from the board to the management to the players, and obviously you alluded to Inter as a team like that, and there's quite a few clubs actually in Italy where they have this strange structural problem where there isn't a clear, we're a club going in this direction, this is the style we want to do, this is, we either want to invest in youth or bring through our own talent rather than buying and things like that, and they just don't seem to have that clear message, and the players just have no confidence whatsoever. So I don't know if it's like a big mass overhaul that needs to happen, or just get past this season and then restructure slightly in the summer to maybe fix it. But there's something very wrong at the club there.
Yeah, they are a mess. And you look at that squad list and you go, crikey, how on earth are they in the mess they're in? I suppose management is a big issue there, but they've got an Italian in charge, of course, so all will be okay in the long run. Other results on the Saturday: Las Palmas drawing 1-1 with Leganes. In fact, that was the only other Saturday game. On to the Sunday games: Eibar and Alaves kind of stank out the joint. Bit of a 0-0 scrappy affair there. Espanyol winning 2-1 against Sporting Gijón. Decent result that for Espanyol, who are quietly sort of moving up the table once again. Unbeaten in 5, in fact, them. And on there was, of course, a derby between Betis and Athletic Club. It's the Basque derby, isn't it? On the Sunday evening. I think it's the Basque derby. Do you know what? I'm sure I've been tripped up by this before, but I'm pretty sure it is a Basque derby. What I do know for sure is that Betis got the win in that game, 1-0. Ruben Castro. I'm sure even you know his name. I think he's 37 now. I think he is. Frantically searching. 35. Sorry, I've given him 2 years. But he's still scoring goals. He doesn't have to know where the net is. 7 this season already. So a good result in that one. And in tonight's game, the final game I want your views on. Villarreal 3, Atletico Madrid 0. Quite the pasting for Simeone's men. Goals from Trigueros, who scored that wonderful goal last week in the Europa League. Jonathan Dos Santos and Roberto Soriano with the goals. I want to ask you the question that we've received from one of our lovely listeners, which is our good friend Jimmy, Mr. NN Guna. He wanted to ask, Atletico Madrid have been mediocre he said mediocre to downright abysmal in the last few months, or month or so, he should say. What do you put this down to? Now, you know a fair amount about Diego Simeone from his time at Inter as a player. Does he strike you as a manager who's not lost the plot because they're doing well in the Champions League, but has maybe lost his fire a bit in La Liga this season?
I really don't understand it because, like you alluded to there, the performances in the Champions League have been very good. And when you look at the list of players they've got at the club, how well they did last season, how well they've done the last few seasons, and just the La Liga form is dreadful. And I don't know if it's a case of teams work them out to a certain extent, and it just works better in Europe than it does in La Liga now. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're just not putting in the same sort of tempo and fiery performances that he used to do. I don't think it's necessarily a massive shock losing to Villarreal, away to Villarreal, because they've been in good form this season, and Sansone and Soriano have been really good additions. Obviously, we talked about Pato before coming to the club, and how exciting it was to see him and some of the performances he's been putting in looking more like his old self. But to lose 3-0, to not really trouble them by the sounds of it. I was watching the Roma-Milan game at the time this was on, so I only sort of caught highlights of it. There's definitely something going on in the Liga, but I really wouldn't be able to put my finger on it. It's something that needs to change quickly, though, because Atletico, they've done so well over the past few seasons. I'm not sure how long they could cope with being out of the Champions League if they missed out on a spot in that. How one season out of it would affect them financially. It could be pretty bad for a club like that.
Yeah, agreed. It's really, really odd form, isn't it? Really, really strange. But nevertheless, they have slipped down the table once again tonight to 6th. And very quickly, we'll run down the table. Real Madrid and Barcelona, of course, the top two, 6-point gap from Real Madrid to Barcelona. Sevilla 1 point back on third, on 30 points. Villarreal up to 4th now, 26 points, as are Real Sociedad on 26 points in 5th. Atletico, as we said, tumbling. They're now 6th, incredibly. Bilbao, despite their defeat, remains 7th with Eibar, Espanyol and Las Palmas making the top 10. Down at the bottom, Osasuna, to me, already look doomed. 1 win from their first 15. They're 7 points bottom. Granada not doing much better either. 9 points from their 15 played. Minus 17 goal difference. Ouch. Sporting Gijón and Valencia, are tied for 17th/18th on 12 points with Deportivo, Leganes, Betis, Alaves and Celta Vigo and Malaga up to 11th place in that order, all kind of looking over their shoulders. Quite tight in La Liga. Right, okay, so that's Spain wrapped up then. Again, please do forgive us. We're not experts. I watch as much as I can, but by our own admissions, we're not quite as clued up as maybe we could be on the Spanish league. So hopefully that wasn't too much of an assault on your ears. Right, moving on then, we're going to go straight to John's neck of the woods next. So I'm sure this will be exemplary as we go into this week's SerieA. No pressure, John. No pressure.
No, none at all.
I expect a James Horncastle level of breakdown from what I'm going to ask you. So we'll cast our mind back firstly to the Monday games. I think we covered Chieva Genoa on the podcast last week, and then 0-0, and Udinese ended up winning that other game with Bologna by 1-0. So that was the Monday games from last week. Moving on to the weekend's action. Just take a look quickly at the Saturday games. Crotone, big win over Pescara, 2-1. When I say big win, it doesn't really move either of them particularly up or down. I mean, they both still look doomed, but decent win for little Crotone, even though it is against the side they were in the same division as last season.
Yeah, no, really important performance for them. Palladino getting them off the score sheet with a penalty given away by Campagnaro, who did actually score one back, scored the equaliser for Pescara. But that famous old Italian name of Ferrari getting on the score sheet for Crotone for the winner. It's important for them. Like you said, I very much doubt they're ever going to get themselves out of that bottom three. They pretty much do look doomed. But for a small club, getting wins where they can, it's all extra money. It's that kind of bounce up, bounce down, bounce up, bounce down kind of thing that Crotone are a club that will float between the two leagues. And if they can keep going up and down, then eventually they'll get that one season where they do hold on, stay up, and then try and build from there. But important win for them, but ultimately I still think they'll go down, probably along with Pescara more than likely.
Yeah, I sadly agree. I like Pescara, but can't see them getting the goals they need, unfortunately. But speaking of goals, we got 3 in the Samp Lazio game the same day. 2-1 victory for Samp. Never an easy place to play at the Stadio Ferraris. But Milinkovic-Savic, my little mate, and Marco Parolo, 2 Felipe Anderson assists in that game. Is he getting back to the player that Manchester United were, according to the president, of course, prepared to pay £50 million upwards for last season?
Yeah, he certainly is, and Lazio in general are just on a bit of a roll and performing much better. Milinkovic-Savic is scoring a lot more goals as well, becoming more of a threat. It was a really good header from him, and then the Parolo goal was a lovely little 1-2 with Felipe Anderson, who just starting to pull a bit more of the strings. And I think since Candreva has left, the pressure is kind of not necessarily all on Felipe Anderson, but he's now sort of the star, whereas before, if the game wasn't going great, Candreva would be the one to pull something out of the bag for the team. And I think Felipe Anderson kind of likes the spotlight and likes to have that bit of pressure on him. Obviously, there still are big players in the club, and Parolo being there is obviously very experienced in midfield, along with Biglia as well. But he's really enjoying that bit of limelight now. Disappointing for Samp because they've been on a pretty decent run, and as you say, they've been on some good home form as well. Schick with the consolation goal late on for them. But another good result for Lazio, and I think their season will be defined on whether they get a European spot, basically.
Yeah, well said. A league high assist for Felipe Anderson at the moment. He's out on 7 with 2 goals. And Milinkovic-Savic with 3 goals this season. As you say, that's more than he got in the whole of last season, I think I'm right in saying. So, he's definitely improved. In fact, 1 goal last season in his 25 games, so 3 and 14 already this season. So good win that for the Eagles. And moving back into the Sunday action, let's start with Cagliari, who... they kind of got a bit demolished by a resurgent Napoli. All of a sudden, they found how to play that lovely football again. What's happened?
Yeah, they've... we talked about obviously losing Arkadiusz Milik and how they'd lost a little bit of firepower up front. They were still scoring goals, but not as many. And they were experimenting with different sort of false 9 formations, and Dries Mertens seemed like the best choice. And he's... during his whole career at Napoli, he's always been a great super sub, but when he started games, he hasn't been superb. In this, okay, it is against Calgary, and they're not a fantastic team, and obviously they are going to be relegated. I think that's pretty much a given. But he was absolutely superb in this game. Hat trick from him. Helped as well in a build-up play for Hamsik's goal, which is brilliant. Zielinski as well, who's been really, really good. One of their outstanding players for the last few games, got an absolute brilliant goal. And I think they'll now think back to. They'll look more at, whilst they lost Milik and lost a little bit of what they had up front for the first couple of games that he was out injured, defensively is where they made some slip-ups, and they might now kind of regret that maybe they didn't make some more reinforcements there, because they maybe might have had been able to or been the best placed team to at least give Juventus a title push, and just those couple of games where they dropped off has really cost them, and I think they've dropped too far back in the league now to realistically challenge Juve. But moving back up the table and sort of seeing the form and performance that you expect of them, and if they can play like that in the Champions League as well, I'll be kind of interested to see what they can do, because they drew Real Madrid, I think, Napoli.
They did.
Yeah. So I could see it could be a very high-scoring game anyway. Let's put it that way, because Real Madrid defending. It's interesting, but they like to throw a lot of people forwards, and Napoli love to hit on the counter and exploit the space. So it could be a very fast-paced end-to-end game. So it should be a good one.
And as we always say on this podcast, the minute John predicts goals, get your money on 0-0 immediately.
Yep.
So just as the
Milan Roma game we'll come on to later.
yeah, absolutely. I did see your tweets on that one. Decent, very decent performance for Napoli, and as you say, Real Madrid await in the Champions League next year. Atalanta losing at home to Udinese. Just briefly on this one, bit of a surprise, that isn't it? Given how well Atalanta have been doing recently.
The result, to be honest, was kind of against the run of play as well. Udinese got a very lucky goal from Zapata, the ball sort of bouncing around off a few players, and then him on the floor managed to pick it up and slot it in. Kurtic getting the equaliser. I think that's half of Atalanta's goals now have come from set pieces this season, which is part of the reason why they've been doing so well. But it was really the thing that stole it. Atalanta were the better side, but just didn't take their chances, and absolutely belting goal from a player I'm sure you remember, Fofana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ex-Lyon?
Yes.
No. Yes,
No, not Lyon, or is he Marseille?
Oh, I'll have to look it up. Carry on.
Yeah, but he, just absolutely brilliant goal. I think the BC guys put it up as one of their 3 goals of the weekend. It's definitely worth looking up. Just absolutely no chance for the keeper to save it. Really, really good. That point, Atalanta just pushing forward, trying to get an equaliser and go on for a winner, and got hit on the break, and Ferru had an easy tap in. But disappointed for Atalanta. They're still, obviously they lost last week to Juve. No real disappointment there. You're losing to the champions, and losing against Udinese. Yes, they'll be upset with it, but it's a minor blip in a otherwise brilliant run of form so far.
Yeah, well said. At least somebody in black and blue is doing quite well in SerieA, hey? More on them in a second. Seiko Fofana, of course. Used to play for Bastia.
Oh, there you go.
Which French club academy do you think he came from?
Lyon, just a guess.
Nearly, Lorient.
Oh, there we go.
He played for Lorient 2 during 2012-13, and they actually went to Fulham, believe it or not. He played 21 games for Fulham. He was very well liked at Bastia, 32 games, only the 1 goal though. So, and you're right, that goal was pretty special. Yeah. So do look that one up. Skipping through the other results quickly on the Saturday: Bologna 0, Empoli 0. Palermo losing again despite changing their manager. Quick Palermo manager watch. Is he still employed?
He is still employed. No new manager bounce. Decent performances they had up until this game. Chievo just outplayed them. And I believe that was Pellicer for Chievo, his 100th league goal in SerieA.
Oh, beautiful. Pellicer. He is. I want to say, is he French or Belgian? I know the name. He's Italian. He is actually Italian. I thought he was French or Belgian. Shows what I know, doesn't it? I always get him confused with Terrell.
Yes, yeah.
Who, of course, is French. So
yeah.
I'll take that one. Okay, Inter, quickly before we talk about the big game. A 2-0 win over Genoa. We've got a question later on, which we're going to save for the onion bag on Inter. We get a question every week on them. Fair to say they got extremely lucky to win 2-0, even though Marcel Brozovic did get 2 lovely goals in this game. But they were quite fortunate to be in front, weren't they?
Just a bit. Genoa completely outplayed them first half. Brozovic got ball knocked down from a corner and struck it lovely into the bottom corner, and there was nothing Mattia Perrin could do to stop it. And basically got a very good finish as well for the second one in the second half. They were better second half. Inter. They carried on with the 3-4-3 formation that they'd used in the Europa League midweek. Seemed to work a little bit better second half. Genoa will be very annoyed they didn't take their chances, because a certain Simeone up front had a few opportunities that on another day he would have buried, and I think Inter would have crumbled. But decent to put in that kind of fight back, because they were outplayed for large parts. And weirdly, when Felipe Melo came on, they actually improved. They didn't play worse. So there you go. Miracles can happen.
Happy days. As I say, we'll come back to them in the questions, but we should of course touch on the big game of the weekend, which was the Turin derby. Torino coming out defeated by 3-1. The Juve machine just rolls on. I have to say they're looking rather ominous once again, but that wasn't the full story, and it has to be said. I think it was the third goal. Joe Hart was extremely unlucky to concede that third goal. I think he made 2 brilliant saves and the third was knocked in, but they took the lead through, guess who, Belotti. What kind of went wrong from there? Because they seemed to be in control and conceded very quickly afterwards.
They just run out of steam, really. They were brilliant when they started the game. As you say, Belotti got the first goal, really riled up the crowd. Mihajlovic had made huge sort of point about how a big derby game starts at the press conference. It doesn't start on the whistle and all that kind of thing. And he had a captain of the Ultras there at the press conference. He had an ex-pro son there at the press conference as well, and really hyped it up. Wasn't quite enough for him. As you say, Joe Hart had a very good game. He was disappointed with the first goal he conceded to Higuain. He thought he should have done better, and I think the criticism of himself is fair, and it's nice to see him doing that. But as the game went on, Torino, they made chances, but they were either picking the wrong pass, or it was just a yard in front of Belotti or just a yard behind him, and they just tired and their legs went, and they didn't have the same ability substitution-wise as Juventus. Juventus started without Pjanic or Dybala. They were both on the bench. Dybala not so surprising because he's just come back from his injury, but Pjanic was a big surprise, and they came on and made the difference, really. Higuain got the second goal, all made by himself. I know people still criticise the fee that he cost, but in the end it was a long ball up to him and he just out-muscled the whole of the Torino back line and fired at him, and there was nothing Joe Hart could do. And then the third goal was all Dybala, really. Came on, turned 3 players, beat another 2, cut inside, fed Higuain, who forced a brilliant save from Joe Hart, who then got up off his feet again to save from Pjanic, but then who fired in the rebound. There was nothing he could do. As you said, brilliant, really, really good reaction from Joe Hart, and it was harsh on him to concede the third. But yeah, Juventus just very professional and got the job done. Didn't start the game great, but looking really, really good. The interesting thing now will be how they fit in Pjanic and Dybala behind Higuain, because Pjanic has looked best when he's played as a 10. So there's talk of playing the fabled Christmas tree formation to have 2 playmakers behind Higuain, which might be a little bit harsh on certain Mario Mandzukic, who's been really good up front. But if you pay all that money, you're going to play that man up front, aren't you? And he certainly proved he's worth his penny in this the Derby della Mole.
Yeah, pretty much. I like Mandzukic. He's one of those I quite like. He's a bit unorthodox, a bit ungainly, but there's something I like about an old-fashioned sort of big centre forward, and he's a bit more than that as well. I think he doesn't get a lot of credit for what he does, but I can't help it. I mean, you look at the clubs he's played for as well. He was at Bayern as well, wasn't he? He's no mug, but I can't help but think he would do a job at someone like Atletico Madrid if they needed which is where he came. I think, wasn't it where he signed from?
Yeah.
Sure. I can't help but think. For a while. Yeah, if he went back there under a different manager, I wonder if he'd do all right. But I guess we will never know because he seems to be at Juve for the time being. So that was the Turin derby. Just briefly, we'll touch on tonight's games because you've just wrapped up watching Roma against Milan. We should say Fiorentina beat SAS 2-1 in the earlier game. But Roma-Milan, so go on then. You predicted goals. I presume it was a thriller or not?
Well, I mean, I enjoyed the game. Let's put it that way. There wasn't a lot of chances, sadly. I predicted a Roma win, but I predicted more goals, and unfortunately, I didn't get enough. It was Raja Nainggolan who got the goal. But Roma were the better team for the majority of the game. They just pressed very high. They were constantly putting Locatelli under pressure, trying to, disturbing for he's obviously very young. The same as well with trying to force Donnarumma to play the ball out. Montella insists on him playing it out, and the one weakness he has got, obviously he's only 17, so you can't really criticise him, but his weakness is his distribution, and Roma exploited that and were winning the ball high up the pitch. Dzeko was brilliant, so it was just a very good, solid, dogged performance from Roma. Milan missed a real bite in the middle. Kuczka was banned, Bonaventura was out injured, so there was Bertolacci and Palisic in the midfield alongside Suso, and they were just out-muscled for every ball. And Bayern Yang was just, I don't think he won 50-50 against Rudiger. And despite Roma still playing this free at the back, they just couldn't exploit it. Lapadula is full of running and very aggressive, just couldn't really get anything on the ball. And when they made substitutions, Milan, they just didn't have enough to topple Roma, and it was just very professional. And it's not the result Juventus would have wanted. They obviously would have wanted a draw, or maybe even a Milan win would have been okay with them. But it means that they closed the gap on Juventus, and next week's game between Roma and Juve was going to be huge and should really set us up for an explosive second half of the season.
Yeah, agreed. I didn't pick out a game to look at for Spain next week. Apologies, I probably should do that for the end of the show. But was there one for next week's fixtures that sort of grips you for SerieA to have a look at?
Yeah, it is the Juve Roma game. It's so big, top of the table clash. That's the 7:45 on Saturday evening. It's just going to be absolutely brilliant game. Now I've said that, it'll be dreadful like Milan Rome was tonight, but no, it should be really good. Interested to see if Juve stick with the back four still, as they're doing. Will they go with a Christmas tree formation? Are they going to start Dybala and Pjanic both for the game? Roma, what are they going to do? They lost Bruno Perez tonight, which looked to a quite nasty injury. El Shaarawy came on, wasn't at his best. Will they change their formation for it? But yeah, if Roma can win that, then the title race is very, very much on, and they can close the gap to, I think, just a point to Juventus, and that will make for interesting viewing for the second half of the season.
I'll have a look at France's fixtures, then I'll decide if I'm going to watch, because I do fancy that. So might have to be the fabled Carpenter multi-screen action that night. I'll get you to give us a table just quickly before we leave that. I couldn't leave. I can't leave the LaLiga game out, can I? It'd be very unfair. So I've actually picked out two just to be greedy. Looking at the fixtures next week, Sevilla Malaga jumps off the page at me. I think that might be a bit tasty. And the obvious one, Barcelona Espanyol. Granted, Barcelona probably will demolish them, but it's a Barcelona derby, so what more can you ask for? That's on the Sunday evening. So back to Italy then. Where are we table wise with regards to the teams after tonight's games?
Yeah, Juventus still top, 39 points. Roma behind them on 35, so just 4 points behind them. Milan third on 32. Napoli just behind them on 31. Joint with Lazio, Atalanta, Fiorentina, Torino, Inter now into the top 10, and Chievo make up that 10th place. Down at the bottom, Palermo, rock bottom, 6 points, Pescara on 8, Crotone on 9, and above them, Empoli, Bologna, Sassuolo, Cagliari, Genoa, Udinese and Samp. There is a game Thursday night as well, which is Genoa against Fiorentina, which was not postponed, a cancelled match from earlier in the season. I think it was hailstones or something like that. The game was on for about 5 minutes, and then they had to call it off because the pitch just got completely flooded. So that's being replayed on Thursday evening.
I remember that game. That was nuts watching that. Yeah, absolutely crackers. So we'll maybe try and remember that one for next week. Quite a big game actually for Fiorentina, because if they win that, they can go up to 6, and then I think they'd only be 2 points behind Lazio and Napoli. So it'll tighten it up if they can win that game. Good stuff. Interesting as well, just very briefly, I noticed that Edin Dzeko is joint leading goal scorer in SerieA this season.
He is, joint capocannonieri.
Yeah, along with Mauro and Belotti, just one behind him. So, who needs Higuain? Anywho, moving onwards then, we've got a couple of La Liga SerieA questions for later on, so I'll save those for you. But I'm going to give my voice a rest. Well, I'm kind of not really, but I'm going to let you do some question and answer sessions for me now. We're going to take a trip over to France next, this week's Ligue 1 roundup.
Okay, so we'll start with Saturday's game. Sorry, I should say. And we'll start with Dijon Marseille. Marseille finding a little bit of form, maybe, or Dijon just that poor.
Resist all temptation to cut the mustard jokes every week. Yeah, they are actually, Marseille. They are finding a bit of form. Last 5 games, they've won 3, drawn 1, lost only the 1 game. When you consider they lost to Monaco, it's not particularly anything shameful in that, because Monaco are just smashing everyone at the moment. So, yeah, they are a little bit of a run of form. They got the victory over Nancy last week, 3-0, and of course this week over Dijon. It should be noted, Nancy and Dijon were both promoted sides from last season, so that you have to kind of caveat that. But Rudy Garcia from his time at Roma, the one thing he's pretty good at is stabilising the ship and getting people organised and winning sort of tight games. And this was no different. They went ahead through Lopez in 6 minutes. That lad from Newcastle, remember him, Mehdi Abid, who scored that wonderful goal for them a few weeks ago. He was back at it again for Dijon this week with a 78th minute equaliser. Newcastle fans still don't remember him. I'm not surprised, in fairness. And big Bafatimbi Gomes with an 87th minute winner. He also, I don't know if you've seen this, I don't know if it was shown in UK TV, but he misses an absolute sitter at 1-1. It is a terrible miss. Comes across the box and thrashes it high and wide from about 6 yards.
I didn't see it, although I'm going to forgive him because I did see highlights of this game, and there was only one other match I've ever seen that was more foggy than that, and it was also in France this weekend. I could barely see a thing in the Dijon Marseille game. Yeah,
it wasn't the best, was it, with regards to the foggy conditions? But
I'm amazed they let it go on. Seriously, I am amazed.
There was a few that were delayed this weekend, and a few games that were sort of on the edge, but nevertheless, yeah, they did play it, and Marseille will be delighted because they got the points. So they are steadily improving. I don't think they're going to be tearing anyone up. Interesting news about their ownership now and everything that's going on. Lots of quite big names being linked to Marseille in January. For the record, I don't think they're going to get any of them, but there's a lot of talk around who they could be going for, as there is around Lille, which we could maybe touch on in a minute. But yeah, they're an interesting project, Marseille, and if they get it right, they are obviously massive, and I'm sure you agree with me that stadium is a thing of beauty. The Velodrome.
Oh yeah, it's lovely.
If they can control their fans and get the right squad together, who knows what they could achieve? They're up to 11th with that victory. Sorry, up to 10th. 9th. Look at the right table, up to 9th with that victory. So, yeah, they're not far off those European places all of a sudden.
Now, on to probably they might be the most informed team in Europe this season. Monaco, away to Bordeaux. And only the 4 goals this weekend, not 5, but a hat-trick for a certain Mr. Falcao. I think it's 4 years since his last hat-trick, something ridiculous like that. One of the goals, I think it was the second one, the first touch he takes just to kill the ball and take it around the keeper is absolutely superb. But Monaco are just unbelievable at the moment, the way they're playing.
I couldn't agree more. I love talking about Monaco, obviously because it's in a league I follow, etc. But what a change! Do you remember when they had all that money and people were heavily critical, and obviously when Falcao went to United, and they were very largely ridiculed, weren't they, for what they were trying to do and the setup they had and everything. And they had all the money from Rybolovlev, the man who nobody can say his name. And then, of course, he had a divorce, and it all went a little bit awkward when he had to give quite a considerable amount of money away to his ex-partner, bless her. And yeah, it all kind of changed around. But the great thing I love about Monaco is they're doing it the right way. They've still got a fair amount of money. They're not skint. That stadium is still utterly appalling. And it's a shame because it'd be lovely to see him in a proper stadium fit for football. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They've just been steamrolling every team. And every week, when that team goes on a run, they're winning 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, whatever, and you think, it can't go on. It just keeps going on. There's just no sign that they're going to stop. And it's an incredible achievement from a side that is so young as well. You look at some of their talent. Kylian Mbappe Lotan, I have to breaking news, he will be a Hipsters Choice very, very soon. So if you like me banging on about French strikers, then that'll be one for you. But no, he's been absolutely fantastic. As I said, as you said there, Falcao as well. I'm trying to find, there's a stat going on around his year. He's got a phenomenal goal scoring record this year alone, and for a man who was essentially ridiculed for, and is saying his career is over. Don't get me wrong, I'm not sure he's ever going to be the elite striker in European football as he once was. As much as I love Liga, he's probably at exactly the right level. But that said, he's scoring goals in the Champions League as well. So, he's just found his level, and he's found a team that play towards what he's good at. And another crushing victory for Monaco, and a goal for Sidibe as well, rounding up the points. Should be stressed that Adam Munas was sent off for Bordeaux in this game, which didn't help their ploy, but they were already 4-0 down. So full credit to Monaco. Crushing defeat for Bordeaux. And Monaco have drawn Man City, which we'll touch on a bit later on. I'm looking forward to that because I don't think that will be anywhere near as straightforward as certain Man City fans seem to think it will be.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there. If Monaco are in this sort of form when those games come round, then that's going to be a proper tie. Just going to skim through some of these other results from Saturday. Nancy getting a good win, 2-0 at home against Angers, above them in the table, so helping them out with their fight against relegation. Lille getting a 2-1 over Montpellier. You just wanted to touch on Lille briefly and some changes there.
Yeah, our very own Ross he's a converted man. He's loving the Lille, bless him, and fair play to him. He's enjoying what he's watching. They are a team that are starting to slowly but surely, much like Marseille, they're turning their form around. They're up to 11th, so they put in a run of 3 straight victories. They beat Cannes 4-2 a few weeks ago. They got a 1-0 win away at Bordeaux last week, and they survived a bit of an onslaught from Montpellier to win this game by 2-1. And there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen with Lille. The talk is that a certain Marcelo Bielsa is in line for a sensational return to French football in January. Now, of course, you'll remember what happened at Lazio, so he can never be assured that he's going to stick around.
Change his mind on the plane, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a lot of talk that the owner, who's known him for a number of years now, is quite keen. It seems to be a bit of smoke around this one, and some of the players they're being linked with, they are probably going to lose Sebastian Courtier, who's their fabled right back, who seems to be quite keen on a move away. So it looks like he'll go. But there's a lot of talk that Lille are after some fairly, I wouldn't say big names, but big names given where they are right now, shall we put it that way. And they've also approached the Sporting Lisbon player Matthias Pereira. He's one of those players who they're looking at. He's only 20, but he's been heralded as one of the big future stars of Portuguese football. He's actually got a €60 million release clause, so they think quite highly of him. So there's talk that they're quite keen on him. But some of the names that have been linked, and obviously, you know as well as I do, for all his faults, Bielsa will attract people to come and watch them again. And if they can fill that stadium and get some of those players in, they might be onto something. So they're a project worth keeping an eye on. And just quickly on this game, another player worth keeping an eye on, the goal scorer for Montpellier goes by the name of Steve Mooney. He is a talent, and he's one that is turning heads around Europe. 5 goals in 14 starts this season. He arrived from Nîmes in Ligue 2 at the start of the season, where he notched 11 in 32 last season. He is definitely a striker that seems to be working well. He was at Montpellier. I think he was actually on loan from memory at Nîmes last season, but he's come back at the start. He was indeed on loan. Just checked it, so he was on loan last season. But yeah, he's come through the Montpellier academy, and I think this kid's got a future. There's a lot of young talent Liga centre forwards wise, but yeah, I think this kid could be something pretty special.
Yep. Just to get through the rest of Saturday's games, just quickly, Bastia got themselves an important win, 2-0 at home against Metz. Worth checking out a certain Alain Saint-Maximin's goal. Really good goal for Bastia, that was. Would you like to talk with Toulouse, Lorient, or shall I just move quickly on from that?
Yeah, let's just move on. Toulouse
Yeah.
won. They're on a terrible move on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Toulouse with a 3-2 win over Lorient. A hat-trick for a certain Ola Toivonen. I didn't think I'd ever say that, but yep.
You know you're not playing well when Ola Toivonen scores a hat trick against you. Yeah.
We'll move on. Nantes Cairns was a postponed game. On to Sunday's games. Lyon got themselves another win, 1-0 win at home to Rennes. Mathieu Valbuena with a goal there. Nice tidy finish. Good build up in that. And a very silly red card for Bessem Biani.
Yes.
Yeah, very stupid tackle on Lacazette as he was going clean through. Saint Etienne. Yep, go for it, sorry.
Just very quickly on that one, Lyon got out of jail big time. Rennes should easily have claimed a point, if not all three. They were all over Lyon for long periods of that game. And had it not been for the reborn Valbuena's goal, I don't think they got points in this. So Rennes very unlucky, has to be said.
Yeah. Saint Etienne doing what they do, winning 1-0, of course.
Standard, yeah.
Against Gangon, Hamouma with the goal there. The last game to talk about was the last game of the weekend, the big glamour tie, as it were, or at least this season anyway, which is PSG against Nice. Started great for Nice, ended better for PSG. Who will be happy with the result, though? A 2-2 there.
Yeah, Desmond. It's hard to know who, but I think Nice will be the happier of the two for obvious reasons. But I have to say, this was a proper game of football. Anyone that, and I'm going to get on my high horse here, on my soapbox, but anyone that says, "Oh yeah, French football boring, dull. It's there's no technique, there's no skill. It's all pass backwards and sideways and defensive." Nah, this was a proper game of football. And anyone that watched it had a real treat. The amount of people on my timeline who were watching this game that are not French football followers, you can tell by some of the tweets, who were really impressed with the game and really enjoyed it. And I'm really pleased to say that. It's great. And it was a surprising result, really, because Nice flew into a 2-goal lead. I don't know if you've seen the Willian Cyprien free kick for the opener, but it's an absolute belter. Oh, this kid has got a lot. He's going to be a big star, sadly, in SerieA, I think. But he's going to do good things. And Alisson Player, who's another one I've mentioned on this podcast a few times. Enjoy his work. Terrible mix-up at the back between Thiago Silva and Marquinhos again, letting Player to fire past Areola for 2-0 at half-time. And all looked well. The only downside to Nice is they had an injury to Delbert Enrico, their fullback, who was clearly struggling to, I think he couldn't even carry his arm. Looked like he got a serious arm injury. And unfortunately down his side, Serge Aurier in the very first minute of the second half powered down the down the right-hand side and crossed for that man, Edinson Cavani, who got the goal back from 4 yards. He couldn't miss, in fairness. And then Cavani himself got the equaliser on 60 minutes. Once again, couldn't miss for a fairly open goal after a terrible piece of goalkeeping from Cardinal, dropping the ball pretty much at his feet. Awful bit of goalkeeping. Should be mentioned with Cavani watch, he did miss 2 absolute sitters once again. So, it is what it is. But that's Edinson for you. And once again, good performance from El Matador. His movement is still brilliant, but it's not very good when you can move brilliantly and then not finish. So, jury's out. But cracking game of football. Mario's back. News for you. He's back on the pitch. He got 20 minutes towards the end, and he got booked. So good old Mario. Nothing changes, but
nice to hear.
Some things never change. But no, the Nice project goes on. They're still looking good. They are back to the top of the league. The pressure, though, on Unai Emery is growing, and a Champions League draw that we'll touch on later won't help. A certain Angel Di Maria booed off as well. All is not looking particularly rosy in Paris right now.
Yes, I hear a rumour that a certain Roberto Mancini might even be being touted for the job there, so that'll be interesting.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So, do you want to give us the Liga table as it stands, and then give us a game to watch next week?
Yes, so as we say, Nice are back on top, 40 points, point clear of Monaco, Europe's great entertainers. You have to say the two together, that's how it works these days. 17 games played for both, 39 points for Monaco, so they are close run thing. PSG, amazingly back in third, seems weird to say that, 3 points adrift, 36 points. Lyon are on the motor, 4 wins from 5 from them, up to 28 points in fourth. Rennes drop a place to fifth. Gangon still flying high in sixth. Toulouse, Saint Etienne, Marseille and Bordeaux make up the top top 10. Down at the bottom, Lorient on the bottom, 12 points. Thanks very much. Moving on quickly. Nantes, they're also down there. So it's a Brittany affair down at the bottom. Those are the two clubs in the relegation spots. Caen are in the playoff position with Dijon, Bastia, and Metz kind of looking over their shoulders. And then Nancy, Montpellier, Angers, and Lille are making up the 14th place, up to 11th. So it's all getting rather tight as we head into the I think it's the final round of fixtures before the winter break. And having a look at those. Sorry, there's two fixtures this because we've got a midweek fixture list in 2 weeks' time. But next weekend's games, I want to be biased and say Lorient St Etienne because St Etienne are not good travellers, and of course Lorient need the points.
Oh, it's Monaco Lyon. Come on, everyone knows it is.
I was just going to say, but I can't say anything other than Monaco Lyon. I have to say though, Marseille Lille might be worth a watch, which is the game before that. But yeah, Monaco Lyon is definitely the one. That's the 7:45 game on the Sunday evening, which I think is live on BT Sports. So that will be a good watch, very very much so.
Lovely stuff. Well, that's everything from Liga this week.
Indeed, just the one to go. And in Drew's absence this week, myself and John are going to attempt to muddle our way through all things Germany. Luckily, I saw plenty of games, so we will transition into this week's Bundesliga. Right then, John, as I say, luckily I had a week where I watched probably more German football than I did English, so hopefully we'll be well prepped between us. Before we kick off the games, shall we talk about a bit of news because it affects Wolfsburg? News came out today. What was it?
Yeah, the sporting director has parted ways with Wolfsburg, or whichever way around you want to put it. Klaus Allofs, which I've probably pronounced horribly wrong, but he's now no longer at the club. There's no real explanation as to why as yet, just the usual, it's been fantastic to work with him, we wish him all the best in the future, blah blah blah, the usual spiel that you would get from a club. It's strange at Wolfsburg, you don't really know what's going on. They're not having a good season. They're unbelievably, I know it's still half a season to go, but at the moment in danger of relegation. They sacked Dieter Hecking after 7 league games. It wasn't going well, fair enough, but they brought in a man, Valorant Ismail, who was supposed to be interim, but he's now there on a permanent basis, it seems. Alus has been fantastic for the club and brought in some wonderful players. The only thing I can see that maybe has led towards this is he made some comments about Julian Draxler, who's obviously been making noise about wanting to leave the club and has been being booed by his own fans when he comes on, was dropped from the squad I think for the Europa League game, so he's not having a great time of it, and Aulus basically saying maybe it was the wrong decision to keep Draxler in the summer, and that we would listen to offers in January for him, because it's clearly not working. Whether that's had anything to do with him not being, well, they haven't used the term sacked, but that's essentially what it seems like from Wolfsburg. We don't know, but that can certainly have something to do with it. But not good news for a club that's already in a mess, losing a man who's really helped him in the past.
Yeah, I can't help but feel that statement about Draxler is, I think how they should have put it is, damn it, why didn't we sell him when we could have got quite a lot of money? Now we're not going to get sod all for him. I think that's probably more accurate description on him. But nevertheless, a player that PSG are fluttering their eyelids at. So if there's one club you want to sell to high, they seem to be a good bet to get a decent amount of money, particularly if Mr. Di Maria doesn't stick around. So we'll keep our eyes on that during January. Wolfsburg themselves, I suppose you should touch briefly. Bayern Munich demolished them 5-0. Are we starting to see Bayern Munich wake up just in time for a winter siesta? It's kind of ironic given the timing, but 3 straight wins. I know it was Wolfsburg. I know they're all over the place, but Carlo is slowly getting it right, would you say, at the Bayern Arena?
Yeah, they look much more like themselves, scoring lots of goals. Arjen Robben scoring a typically Arjen Robben goal, the only thing he can do, which is cutting on his left foot, and still he seems to be able to do it. I honestly don't understand how.
It's baffling, isn't it?
Yes.
Why do teams not defend it?
I always think just show him on his right foot, and no one ever seems to be able to do it, which obviously is a mark of a wonderful footballer. But I always just think just stand that side of him and make him go on his right. And he's just too good, obviously, and we're just not giving him enough credit. Lewandowski with 2. Thomas Muller, a man who hadn't scored for 999 minutes.
He's back.
Yeah, according to Opta-Stats, that's not made up. Yeah, that is a real stat. Finally got himself a goal, little goal purchase goal, and probably actually the best of the bunch was Douglas Costa, another sort of forgotten man at Bayern Munich who hadn't perhaps been in the headlines as much after last season where he was doing really well. But yeah, brilliant result for Bayern, and in fact a very, very good result because of something else that happened that weekend in the league.
Yes, shall we go there next?
Yeah.
I assume you're referring to RB Leipzig,
I
who
am
have
indeed.
finally lost a game. The joint leadership now of the Bundesliga Bayern are joint leaders because Leipzig lost, quite surprisingly actually, to Ingolstadt, who've been struggling at the wrong end of the table. They're second bottom, in fact. But a winning goal in this game coming from Roger, and that result, a huge result for Ingolstadt, has to be said. But is this the wheels coming off? Is this kind of just one of those days? And also, do you want to just mention the sending off of Matthew Leckie at the end? Because that was one heck of a brawl right towards the end of that game.
I'm not sure it's so much the wheels coming off. I think it is, like you said, one of those days. Emil Forsberg probably had the best chance and he put it wide, and any other day you would have had him to put it in the back of the net. But yeah, they didn't defend the goal particularly well from the set piece. It was an easy finish for Roger, and they just weren't all quite firing on all cylinders on the day. And at some point it's going to happen. Unfortunately for Leipzig, it came against one of the worst teams in the league. The more concerning thing for them, I thought, was probably actually the big brawl at the end. As you say, Matthew Leckie getting sent off, second yellow, and just all sorts of players all just throwing elbows and running into each other. There is a German term for it, which I can't remember now off the top of my head, but I did hear Rafa Honigstein say it. I'll have to look it up. But there is an actual German word for a sort of football match brawl on the pitch. But a lot of players really lost their cool, and that will be of some concern because obviously they are quite a young team, Leipzig, and that's something they may have to rein in a little bit. Obviously, it was Leckie who got sent off for Ingolstadt, but there could have been a few Leipzig players who could have got sent off in that game as well. But disappointing for them. But if you set to Leipzig, you'll be joint top of the Bundesliga at this point in the season. I think they would have snapped your arm off for it.
I think you are absolutely right, and they've got the opportunity to put it right, of course, in the next game, which is a pretty big one against Hertha Berlin, who've equally had a pretty good season this year as well. So they have the opportunity to put it right, and that is on Saturday. So that'll be worth keeping an eye on, I'm sure. But it's a shame that Drew couldn't join us tonight because I want to talk Borussia Dortmund next. The curious case of Borussia Dortmund. They currently sit sixth in the Bundesliga, which in itself is a bit nuts. But when you consider they're a massive 8 points now off of Leipzig and Bayern Munich. What is going wrong here? Because they drew to FC Köln. It's a 1-1 draw. Now, that in itself is not a terrible result because Köln have had a fantastic season. They're only 2 points behind Dortmund themselves in seventh. Rudnev's firing Köln in front, and Marco Reus with literally the last gasp of equalisers possible. His second last gasp of equaliser in a week, of course, when he got the equaliser in the Bernabeu. But you look at that Dortmund side, you look at Tuchel's philosophy, the way they play football, some of the young players they got coming through. They got one of the best strikers in Europe. What is going wrong? Because something is not working there. And I watching them, I can't put my finger on what it is other than confidence or defensive organisation. Have you got a view on that?
For me, I think it comes down to the defence. I think on the day they weren't fantastic. I think they admitted themselves they didn't put in the performance they should have. Köln have been good this season, but I still expect Dortmund to win that game with the firepower that they've got going forwards. But it's at the back. I do not trust that defence. I'm not sure that the manager particularly does, or is it something Tuchel really concentrates that much on? I don't know enough about him, but it seems to be their one weakness. And I think it kind of still stems from that Jurgen Klopp era team that they were amazing going forwards, but they always had that worry about them at the back. They're a little bit more solid then, but obviously they've lost a lot of those important players that they had in the team, and they've changed the system, and they're free at the back now, and they use the wing backs, and it's a very young team. You know, Ginter's in there, Weigel's in there as well in midfield. They're all great players, but they're all very young age, and I'm not sure if it's maybe a little bit too much for them sometimes. But the forward line just didn't help them out enough, and it's weird that they seem to have this. They just can't quite break into those Champions League spots in the league at the moment, and the longer that goes on, that will be a worry for them, because it's one thing losing someone like Aubameyang in the summer, which is something that I think the club and the fans probably expect and wouldn't be a huge surprise. But if you drop out the Champions League and you miss that spot, then it's not just him that leaves, it's maybe a few others, and then it becomes a lot harder to maintain yourself as one of the top sides in Germany.
Yeah, agreed. Well said. Just looking at their side as well. I mean, you know, when you've got just looking at the centre back partnership, the three at the back, as you say, Ginter, Pastadopulos, and Piszczek, who I've always known Piszczek as an attacking fullback, as a centre back. That's odd. And you had Derman and Schmelzer, who both like to bomb on. Derman in particular is more of a midfielder than a fullback. And I think where you've got the real issue then is playing this 3-4-2-1 formation. You've got Dembele and Marco Reus, who are both, as you would know, both proper attacking forward players behind Aubameyang, the shield of Castro, who also likes to pull the strings from deep and get forward, and poor old Julian Weigl, who's essentially doing three-man's jobs in one. I mean, when they're all bombing forward, it leaves Weigl pretty much on his Todd. And when you've only got three men behind him, that I think is just, watching them against Cologne, they were just cut open time and time again. And I think Cologne will be kicking themselves that they didn't see that game out. But it's a bit of a weird one. And I'd like to see Emre Moore get more football as well. I think he's a player I really like. And why Mark Bartra was on the bench for this game as well. Very odd. Very, very strange. But nevertheless, up next for Dortmund is Hoffenheim. So I think that will probably be worth a watch as well. Hoffenheim themselves levelling out. Would it be fair to say, given their sort of situation? 0-0 draw with the Eagles. Alex Meyer's Eintracht Frankfurt, who is still having a wonderful season, unbeaten in 5 now. They sit 5th. 0-0 draw in the Bundesliga. Well, what do you make of this bizarre occurrence?
Well, they were very polite and put it on the Friday, and it was the only one you had to suffer, whereas all the other games they had lots of excitement in, so I like that about them. And they also threw in a red card as well. In fact, I think there was probably 3 games in the Bundesliga this weekend that didn't have a red card in. There was a lot of sending off. That was pretty much all you could say about that match, to be honest.
Yeah, Tim Chandler's red card. I think there's 9 in total this weekend in the Bundesliga. It was all kicking off. People are, I reckon, a lot of people want Christmas off. I'm just calling it now. Just even though there's a winter break, they want that early weekend off. They want to get it in now. So, yeah, bizarre result, that 0-0. A couple of other results. Hamburg with a much-needed victory over Augsburg. 1-0 victory for Hamburg. 2 wins on the spin. Whatever next. Unbeaten in 4. Goodness me, don't call it a comeback. So they're on the rise. And good old Freiburg, who I have to confess I've got a bit of a soft spot for. It's got nothing to do with kits, I promise. Or to do with Grifo, honest. But they beat Darmstadt by 1-0 at last minute, last gasp goal. Takes Freiburg, who of course don't forget they were promoted last season, takes them up the table to 9th. They're doing very well. I'm happy. And Hertha Berlin losing at home to Werder Bremen. Have to touch quickly on this one. Surely this is a shock result, isn't it? Werder Bremen really struggling in 14th. With this victory, cements 14th place. But Hertha 3rd in the league. Bremen rock up, and Max Kruz's goal, who player you'll know quite well, notches the winner. Again, bit of a freak result, or is it one of those that Hertha are maybe just struggling to keep up with the pace?
No, I think it's a freak result. If I remember correctly, I think the Hertha keeper dropped the ball basically at Max Kruz's feet.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, yeah, and he got the goal and basically stole it, and Bremen held on. Yeah, disappointing for Hertha, but I think it's more of a blip than anything else. I think after last season, obviously they did tail off a little bit, but they've really established themselves as a top club again. Who will look like anyway to be competing at least for European spaces season in, season out at the moment.
Yeah, well said. Do you want a quick word on Mönchengladbach? 1-0 victory. Finally won a game.
Oh.
A A bit fortunate though, wasn't it? About the tell the listeners about that last minute goal that wasn't, because it should have been, shouldn't it?
Oh yes. Well, let's see. Our loanee from Chelsea, Anders Christensen, got a very fortunate toe poke goal from a scrambled corner that just fell to him in the box at the right place. Was very happy with that. We played okay in the game. We weren't fantastic. Mainz looked a little bit leggy from midweek. We perhaps didn't exert ourselves as much as we played Barcelona and got spanked. But yeah, Mainz had a perfectly good goal ruled out for offside, wrongly ruled out for offside. De Blasis, I think it was. At first, I thought it had been given as a foul against Jan Sommer and that he kicked the ball out of his hands, but actually Sommer had dropped it and De Blasis had just timed his run perfectly for a tap in, and was ruled out incorrectly. And then Gambin was sent off in the last minute as well, as Gladbach basically tried to run the ball into the corner, and there was a bit of frustration come over from the Mainz players. But yeah, Mainz, they deserved the draw, to be honest. But that's kind of the luck that Gladbach have been needing, something like that, just to fall to them. And I think now it's just a case of just get to the winter break and then sort of reassess during that period and maybe see if we can get one or two players in to build the squad up a bit more.
Yeah, tough times. And the final game, we should just touch briefly on the final game of the weekend, which was a really low-scoring weekend in Germany this weekend, actually, other than Bayern. But a 1-0 victory for Bayer Leverkusen in the Veltins Arena at Schalke, which is a huge result that for Leverkusen. My God, they didn't have to make hard work of it, though. Naldo was sent off for Schalke in the 4th minute, so they had 86 minutes to try and break them down. And it took till the 89th minute when Hakan Çalhanoğlu, say that when you've had a few, crossed in, and there was big Stefan Kiesling. He's still doing it, isn't he? He's still, if you want the ball to fall to somebody in the air other than Alex Meyer or maybe Thomas Muller, it's Stefan Kiesling, isn't it? 32 years of age. He has the same birthday as me, by the way. He is a year younger, sadly. But yeah, 25th of January 1984. Get your cards in now. I'll take generous donations as well. But yeah, he's had quite the career, hasn't he, big Stefan Kiesling? 138 goals and 355 appearances. Not bad for a not particularly fashionable centre forward, is it?
Yeah, very good and really good header, and that's one of his he's always been known for his aerial threats. It surprised me that Leverkusen took that long to break Schalke down. Losing not just a centre back, but one of your sort of star and leading men at the back in Naldo so early on in the game. I really didn't get it, and I don't think Schalke even mustered a shot on target because they basically were trying to hold out for a draw, and maybe if they could get one on the break, that's all they could do, and it was all Leverkusen. But they got there in the end, and they got the win, and it brings to an end a decent run that Schalke have been on. I think they've won their last 3, so disappointing for them. Obviously losing Naldo as well now for a couple of games won't be great either, but good result for Bayer, sorry. I think both teams will be disappointed with how their seasons have gone so far, because I think they both expect more. I think their fans would as well, especially with the players that they've got at both clubs.
Yeah, well said. And Chicharito Hernandez is still struggling to find form. I read a story, I must admit I didn't realise that apparently his partner, his girlfriend, I believe, I think she was either attacked or there's some kind of issue going on with something to do with her. I'm sure I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that there was an incident involving his partner, and I think that's probably what's thrown his mind off of the game. I'll have to double check that, but I'm sure something went on with her during the period of time, which has coincided with the time that his form has kind of tailed off.
Yeah, he I mean, he was the player who I don't mean it in he got Naldo sent off, but he was the player fouled by Naldo. Just a ball through to him, and it was a really smart run, and he ran straight across Naldo's path. So Naldo either had to not go anywhere near him and basically stop running, or was going to foul him. So it was smart centre forward play as well, and Naldo took the bait and just fouled him, brought him down as he was running clean through into the box. So it was like deserved red, but very intelligent centre forward play. At least he's still got that sort of intelligence about him.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Just looking at the story, his partner has been in hospital for a prolonged period of time. Can't actually see the reasons on this article behind it, but he was granted. Oh, that's right, that's it. She had a collapsed lung, which obviously is quite serious. And his girlfriend, who goes by the name of Luciana Villan, I believe it's pronounced, he was granted permission to leave the Mexico international duty recently to go and fly back and see her. So you can imagine, I know this is a game we all love, but people forget these players have lives away from the pitch as well, and that sort of thing is probably going to affect your form, I think it's fair to say. So I doubt whether she's listening, but we wish her well, nevertheless. So I'm sure that will turn around in good time. Right, we'll quickly run through the table before we move on then. Bayern Munich top of the league, joint with Leipzig, as we said, 33 points both from 14 played. Hertha Berlin retained third place on 27, with Hoffenheim, Eintracht Frankfurt, go on the Eagles, in fifth and fourth respectively. Borussia Dortmund sixth, Cologne, Leverkusen, Freiburg, go on Freiburg, and Schalke in 10th now make up that top period of the table, part of the table I should say. Darmstadt and Ingolstadt look the two in most trouble at the bottom, so 18th and 17th. Hamburg still not safe on 16th place now. Wolfsburg dropping like a stone, 10 points also for them. Werder Bremen, Augsburg 14th and 13th, and then Borussia Mönchengladbach might make up the 12th and 11th positions. As far as a game goes for next week, I'm just having a look at these games. I don't know if you've got the fixtures
pick, there. Well, I was going to shout out RB Leipzig against Hertha.
Hertha, yeah.
On Saturday. That is the 2:30 kickoff. That looks like it should be a decent match.
Hoffenheim Dortmund should get your weekend off quite nicely on Friday as well. I think that could be, because you've got like the two up and coming coaches, haven't you, in Tuchel against Nagelsmann.
Absolutely.
So it'd be really interesting to see if Hoffenheim go at Dortmund given their current form, or whether they try the tactical sit-off approach. So I think I'll give that one a watch. And just as an outside shot, Wolfsburg Frankfurt might be interesting, with all that's gone on at Wolfsburg and Freiburg's excellent record recently. So lots of good games to look at this weekend. I didn't even completely overlook Schalke Freiburg as well. So watch all the games. Just watch all the games. You'll be fine. Right, okay. Let's draw a line then under our whips around the European leagues this week. Again, we appreciate you for bearing with us. There's only two of us this week, so we've done our best to make things a little bit different. If you like it, let us know. If you don't, sorry. Right, let's move on then to our little trip around what else is going on in the world. It's this week's Best of the Rest. Right, just one trip to another league this week, and it's back to America we go, because we just want to give a little nod and a wink to MLS Cup champions, Seattle Sounders. Yes, they won it on penalties. Now, it probably will surprise you, John. I don't know whether you saw this, but a 0-0 in MLS. What is going on? I tell you, strange. I thought there'd be goals all over this, with the both sides generally are pretty good attackers. But 0-0 at half-time, 0-0 at full-time, 0-0 after extra time. There was a stunning save in this game from the. I believe it. I'm pretty sure it's from the Sounders keeper, Stephen Fry, who used to play, from memory, for Toronto. He made an absolutely brilliant save. I think it's from Altidore late on. It was a stunning save. If you haven't looked that up, do have a look. It really was a brilliant save. And that took the game into spot kicks, and Seattle were the prevailing team by 5-4 in the end, and the winning penalty was struck home by Torres after Morrow had missed the crucial one for Toronto. So unfortunately, there will be no trophy for the Atomic Ant, John, I'm afraid.
Terrible.
I know. Gutted. He didn't take a penalty either. I don't know whether he had been substituted at that point. That's why. Yeah, he got substituted. I take it all back. Ricketts came on for him in extra time, so I did think it was strange that he didn't take a penalty. But do you think he'll stick around there? Because he seems to be happy, doesn't he? He seems to be all right in Canada.
He's doing very well there, and I'm sure he's being paid quite well as well. I still think he can easily play for a very good team in most leagues in Europe. He's got that ability, but it's whether anyone goes to try and buy him or not, I guess.
True, true. Yeah, yeah, as you say, he's a joy to watch every game, even though it's a, I hate to be harsh on our American listeners, but we all know it's a lesser standard. But he was brilliant this whole season, and rightfully has got lots of accolades his way. But congratulations to the Seattle Sounders. Quite the story, this, John. I don't know if you followed them at all in any of this, but Schmelzer, the new coach, came in halfway through the season. They were a little bit of a mess under Ziggy Schmidt, which is just the greatest name in a coach ever. I think they were literally at the very bottom of their conference at the time, and it all just turned around. They went on a run of winning games. Jordan Morris, former Hipsters Choice, bagging goal after goal. They got Nelson Valdez, bless him, he's still playing as a centre forward as well. Ladero's been fantastic all season, as has Alonso. Chad Marshall at the back. They've got a really good lineup, and amazingly, a team with Tyrone Mears wins MLS Cup. So there's a nod to the past for you. But yeah, congratulations, Seattle. They take home the MLS trophy, and that is MLS done for another season. And of course, next year we've got the two new franchise sides coming in. Atlanta are one of them. I can't for the life of me remember who the other side coming into MLS. So he frantically Googles franchise teams. I'll just see if I can find. But I know Atlanta are one of them that are coming in. I'll have to try and find who the other one is because I can't see it here. So I'll have to look it up in a minute. But there you go. We are going to be seeing two new teams in MLS next season. So that's MLS done. Quickly, John, we want to run through the draws, don't we, for the Champions League and Europa League, and then we'll give a little nod to the Ballon d'Or. So we've touched on a few, but who got who in the Champions League and the Europa League?
Yeah, okay, so Champions League, you've got Man City facing Monaco, Real Madrid facing Napoli, Benfica against Dortmund, Bayern Munich against Arsenal, of course, FC Porto against Juventus, Bayer Leverkusen against Atletico Madrid, PSG face Barcelona, and Sevilla face Leicester. As for the Europa League, lots more ties in that. Bilbao face Apoel, Legia Warsaw against Ajax, Anderlecht against Zenit, FC Astra face Genk, Manchester United against Saint-Etienne, that's the battle of the Pogba brothers, Villarreal against Roma, Ludogorets get Copenhagen, Celta Vigo face Shakhtar, Olympiacos face Osmanlispor, Ghent face Spurs, Rostov against Sparta, Krasnodar face Fenerbahce, Mönchengladbach, Fiorentina, AZ Alkmaar against Lyon, Hapoel Beersheva against Besiktas, and PAOK face Schalke.
Ooh, some tasty ties there. Favourites from both? Any that PSG Barcelona leaps off the page for me, as does Monaco Man City, just because I'm biased. St Etienne United sounds tasty. Anything else that you've dig out of that?
Yeah, I mean, I like the looks of the Benfica Dortmund game. That should look
goals.
Goals in that definitely. Monaco Man City as well. I'm really excited to see that because Man City do obviously play much more open now under Guardiola. Monaco like to score lots of goals. But they are defensively solid, so that'll be really interesting. And I do actually think Leicester against Sevilla should be good. I hope by that point in the season Leicester are a bit more solid and safe in their league position, so they can actually have a bit of a go at it and aren't sort of worrying about whether they're going to get relegated or not from the Premier League, because I really do think that sitting back and letting the other team have the ball, as Sevilla like to keep possession anyway, as Spanish sides tend to do, would actually suit Leicester in this, so I think they've got a chance there.
Yeah, well said. And I shall be tuning in for that Man United St Etienne game. That intrigues me greatly. Breaking news: Minnesota United. That's the other team going into MLS next season. So, and please, nobody write in asking me to explain the MLS expansion draft. I haven't got a clue. It's really confusing. Even John, I don't even think you can get your head around this one.
I'm not even going to attempt it. And listeners know you are not allowed to ask me to either.
Go on, listeners, ask him. I dare you. I will make him answer it if you do. So go on. I'm relying on you, Mr. Jimmy Ananguna. Ask John that question next week. Go on. Even if you know the answer, just ask him anyway. It'll be fun. Right. Just quickly then, Ballon d'Or was released as well. We're not going to go through the whole list because, frankly, it would bore you. But Cristiano Ronaldo winning it. Did you see how many points he won it over Lionel Messi in second and Antoine Griezmann in third? Did you see?
No, I didn't actually see the points difference. I just saw the list of the winners. Oh, sorry, where everyone placed.
745 points Ronaldo garnered from Lionel Messi, 316.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's quite the landslide, isn't it? So, Our congratulations to Cristiano Ronaldo. I know he listens, so afternoon, Cristiano. I'm sure you're enjoying the pod. So yeah, he claims the Ballon d'Or. I want to say that's his fourth. I might be really wrong there.
Yeah, I think that is his fourth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just greedy. He could someone to us. We could raffle it or something.
But
fair play to him. Just a couple of looking down the list. Neymar fifth, Suarez fourth. Rui Patricio makes the list in 12th. Gigi Buffon for you there, John, in 9th. Jamie Vardy and Riyad Mahrez 7th and 8th for Leicester and reward for their season. Dimitri Payet also makes the list in 17th, and Arturo Vidal in 14th. So Robert Lewandowski down in 16th. Not ideal for him.
Personally, think Gigi Buffon's moustache alone should have come at least third.
We should have mentioned that, shouldn't we? It is. He looks a little bit like a porn star postman. That's the only way I can describe it.
I'm very upset. A lot of the SerieA Twitter accounts that I follow and sort of interact with, they're all very they're not pleased with his moustache at all. They don't like it, but I absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant.
I like it. It's almost a bit Clouseau, isn't it? It's I like it. It's and frankly, Gigi Buffon could wear a mask and he would still look cool. Yep. So, I'm all for it. Bless him. Was he 40 now? What a legend. Anyway, we should do an honorary Hipsters Choice one week, but it's almost like I set that up, isn't it? Because that is where we're going to go next and go over to see who we're going to put into our fabled, I should say, Hipsters Choice list and see who we're going to induct. He comes from Holland this week, so without further ado, this is this week's Hipsters Choice. Okay then, so we mentioned he is from Holland, but he is not Dutch. He is he's currently playing at Ajax. As we introduce to you this week's Hipsters Choice, it is Kasper Dolberg. So what do we know about Kasper Dolberg? Well, he is playing currently in Holland, as we said, for Ajax. He's a number 25. He's Danish. Born on October the 6th, 1997. Sickening, I know. 19 years of age. He was born in Silkeborg in Denmark. He's 1m87, 6'1" to you and I. And he's 170 pounds or 77 kilograms in old money. He's a right-footed forward and he wears the Adidas X16.1 silo boots or cleats, whichever you prefer. He is Kasper Dolberg, all one word, on Instagram, and he is verified, so go stalk him if you wish. As we said, born in Silkeborg in Denmark, he joined his local club, Silkeborg IF, at the age of 12. In January 2015, he was signed by Ajax, a deal which would make the 17-year-old move during the summer, despite having yet made a first-team appearance for Silkeborg at the time. He eventually made his debut for the club on May 17th, 2016, in the Danish Superliga game against Brøndby FC. He would only play 2 more senior games before moving to Ajax, who was clearly a hot prospect for the Dutch side. In 2015-16 season, he shone for Ajax under 19s, netting 8 in 22. That earned him a first-team place at the start of this season. He made his competitive debut for Ajax in the Champions League group game on July the 26th, 2016 against PAOK and scored in a 1-1 draw. Shortly thereafter, he made his Eredivisie debut against Sparta Rotterdam, coming on for the last 13 minutes of Ajax's 3-1 victory. And it was a subsequent game where he really made his mark, scoring twice in a 2-2 draw against Roda JC, earning him a Man of the Match award. Other notable Ajax stars who've scored on their senior debut include, and this is a list, Johan Cruyff, Marco van Basten and Frank Rijkaard. That's quite the company he has there. Interestingly, and we'll touch on this in a moment, Dolberg was scouted by John Steen Olsen, who also brought a certain Zlatan Ibrahimovic to Ajax. So, comes from good cloth there. Of the player, Olsen says, Kasper is extraordinarily talented. I knew he would be the perfect player for Ajax. Kasper has exceptional quality, speed, technique, intelligence, and good play on the ground or in the air. Dolberg has scored 8 goals in 15 appearances, including 2 assists thus far in 16-17 season. He's fast, strong, and a natural finisher with a powerful right foot shot. Dolberg has all the attributes of a top-level striker, quiet and unfazed. He's also taken top-flight football in his stride for one so young. For much of his youth career, he was employed on the left flank, kind of cutting in. That's That's the Iron Robin role to you and I. Into his game, he was able to drop back into the number 10 and adopt his skills to switch seamlessly from the flank into that position. And he's favoured for his ability to create space and effectively link up all of Ajax's attacking forward line. He has a few glaring weaknesses, it has to be said, but being young can improve all facets of his game. One area he can definitely work on is his passing accuracy is not the best, and his contribution to the defensive side of things is also not exactly brilliant. Dolberg has played at all levels for the Danish national side, recently earned his first senior cap in an international friendly against Kazakhstan in November 2016. Okay, so that is Kasper Dolberg. Now, by your own admission, John, is not a player you've seen a lot of, and it's again a shame we couldn't get Drew on this week because I know he's a big fan, but I'm sure we can get Drew's views on him in a future podcast. I'm sure we can do a little special from Holland maybe and have a chat about him then. But we wanted to just get the comparisons there that were highlighted with Zlatan. Now, he's a different type of player, a lot sort of small, a lot more quick, relies on those inside runs, and he's a lot more of a Paulo Dybala type of player, I think, as opposed to Zlatan. But there is that link with Zlatan and the Ajax Academy. So what I want to ask you is, judging by what you saw of Zlatan when he was in SerieA at both Milan clubs and Juventus, do you think there is still a potential for a lad of such young, tender years to make it from Scandinavia back into SerieA?
Absolutely. When Zlatan came, he had a great first season at Juventus and basically went in for, I think it was Trezeguet at the time was injured. And scored it was over 10 goals at least in his first season. He wasn't as good in the second season. His position changed slightly and he played a little bit deeper and was sort of making the play more. Obviously he really made his name at Inter Milan and helped them win titles. Obviously those titles were stripped from them. That wasn't Zlatan's fault. He didn't know about that, but these things happen, particularly in Italy. Sorry, at Juventus the titles were stripped, not at Inter, I should say. But he won titles with Juve, although taken away. He won titles with Inter. He obviously came back a bit later in his career as well to AC Milan for a few seasons after his spell at Barca. And he was a great success there. If this young man can do it as well, it's difficult to have a career like that. Like you said, the comparison with Dybala is interesting because Dybala is a young player who's come from South America. Whether that's any easier coming from there than it is from a Scandinavian country, I don't really know. I don't see that the transition would be that much more difficult. But Dybala has gone from being a name at Palermo, was loaned out for a few lower league Serie B teams, came into the first team at Palermo, had a great season and went straight to Juventus and hasn't looked back since. So there's no reason this young man can't do the same. You just got to have the right attitude, and from what everyone says about him being quiet and quite reserved, that's exactly what you want to hear about a player, and that they're just concentrating on their football and nothing else.
Yeah, well said. And he's affecting games at such a young age at Ajax, and of course, we've seen so many players come through that Ajax academy, and it's always difficult to judge whether they're going to go Ryan Babel or whether they're going to go Zlatan. It's very difficult to know which of the two, but he's got all the makings of a really exciting talent, and he's taking games by the scruff of his neck. I think that's something that I've really noticed about him in the few games I've watched him play, and in that sort of free-flowing Ajax system. I think it will work, and I just hope his career goes more sort of more kind of Brian Laudrup, who of course briefly played in SerieA. I hope it goes more that way than it does Martin Odegaard, who of course is the other one that is favoured out of the Denmark youth project, who seems to be on his way to Ligue 1 for the rest of the season. So yeah, let's hope he progresses. But yeah, huge amount of talent, and we will dig out some clips and post them on our Twitter account in the coming days, so you can have a little look at him if you're not familiar with his work. We should say as well, if you've got questions on the young lad, please do chuck them Drew's way, because he loves talking about his Ajax boys. And that's the second Ajax player this season to go into the Hipsters Choice after Hakim Ziyech. So they're doing well, Ajax, aren't they? Right, okay, so that's the Hipsters Choice done and dusted for another week. As usual, you can find all of our previous Hipsters Choices, complete with the timestamps of each podcast, on our website. Just navigate to the footballhipsterspodcast.co.uk, go to the Hipsters Choice tab, and you can run through all of our previous ones. And we're doing quite well, John, I have to say. Even if you look back at the history of the ones we've done, there's very few duds in there. They're all pretty good, I think. So
It's almost like we watch too much football.
It's almost like that, isn't it? Yeah, it's almost like that. I'm sure we'll pick a dud at some point. But do you want me to give you an exclusive on who we're doing next week?
Oh, go on then.
Oh, well, actually, I don't know. Do I really want to tell you? Yeah, go on then. There's a certain young lad at Atalanta that you rather like.
Ooh. He might not have the first name Frank, would he?
He might.
Oh,
he might.
Lovely stuff.
He might also have the surname Kessie. So, yes, can exclusively reveal next week we will be doing Franck Kessie, who is the probably the big name of Atalanta this season. Would it be fair to say? I think it's probably fair to say that. So, yes, if you like your Italian stuff and you want to hear John waffle on about a player that he really likes, as opposed to me for a change, do tune in next week and we will give you all the information we can about Franck Kessie. So get your questions in if you've got any coming up. So there we go. Right, okay. We'll wrap the show up then, as we always do, with this week's questions answered in the onion bag. Okay, just a couple, so we'll rattle through these as quickly as we can. Our first one comes in from our good friend Pete Kennelly over in Australia. He wants to ask a question about Inter. Sigh, rolls eyes. Are Inter in the forced holding pattern mode with the takeover problems and Diego Simeone waiting in the wings? Good question, that one.
There was a lot of talk actually in the Italian press about this, how obviously Simeone's son had come out before the game and said that his dad calls him and sort of hypes him up for it, and how he'd said that at one point, yes, of course he'll manage Inter Milan, and Simeone himself has also said this, and it's been seen as a real insult to Pioli, who's only just got the job. I don't think Pioli's under any pressure right now. If Diego Simeone came available at the end of the season, then the club would obviously have to make a decision, because he's proved himself to be an excellent manager. The issues at the club at the moment is that Pioli hasn't had enough time, and quite frankly the defence isn't good enough. The change of formation has helped, certainly with the back three and having more. They're not really wing backs, they're playing as midfielders who get back and defend. Wide at the moment, it's certainly helped out the defence a bit, but that's the real issue. And I think once Eric Fourier is out of the club, if that ever truly happens, I think it will be a little bit easier, because then the Sunning group will have complete control and really will have say of what direction the club's going in. But yeah, that does need to be addressed, but I don't see it happening until at least the summer, because it's not going to happen during the season, that's for sure.
No, true that, and we will keep watching. You'll be happy next season. I don't know if you've seen this, but they've already released their kit design. They're going back to black and blue as usual. They're going back to gold imprints and white. So it's going to be gold trim with white sponsors. So the yellow socks are no more. I quite like them, I've got to be honest. It's grown on me, especially with the font matching. I really like it, but that's just me.
Are they keeping the Sprite can kit? That's the question.
No. Nike have already released their designs for next season. They are very much not spritey. So, no.
Just also, if I don't know whether Pete meant this in the question or not, I do like Pioli, and I think he is a good manager. If Diego Simeone become available, though, however, I would snap him up straight away. And that's very harsh on Pioli, and I feel sorry for him, because he has kind of walked into a job where that is a possibility. But yeah, I couldn't say no to Simeone. He's too good a manager.
What am I going to do? Because I'm not a big fan of Simeone. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll have to cross that bridge when I get there. But nevertheless, if he wins stuff, I mean, I put up with Mourinho, so I'll get over it, I suppose. Anyway, I'm sure Inter Milan really give a toss what I think. Anyway, question from our long-time listener, Noma Mabandla. I get it wrong every week. Sorry, Noma. It's almost like a running joke, isn't it? Doing a Danny, that's called in the trade. She wants to ask about Zidane. Is he getting his dues for the work he's done at Madrid? I feel like it's taken for granted, and that he's been lucky with this run. They're unbeaten in a ridiculous amount of games, aren't they? They set that record with the Deportivo win. And they're off to the Club World Cup this week, so they won't be in LaLiga action for a little while. Do you think Zidane's getting the credit he deserves? Because he's quietly gone about his business. They don't look like being beaten right now, do they?
It's quite impressive, to be honest, because I wasn't sure about how much managerial credentials you get from managing the Real Madrid B team, essentially, and that's a huge step up to take on not just any first team club, if you like, but to take on Real Madrid. And I think it's probably a little bit looked over because it is Real Madrid and the players they've got there that a lot of media and fans will just go, oh well, he's got the players there, it's easy to do, kind of in the way that some people aren't huge fans of Pep Guardiola. They'll just say, well, look at the players he had at Barcelona, anyone could manage that team and get results. So I do think it has been really overlooked, and the one thing he has changed that they struggled with, I still think they are weak defensively. I don't think that's necessarily his problem. I think that's more the players he's got there, but he has made them more solid than they were previously. And the reliance they had on Ronaldo isn't so much there, and he's changed the system, and he's also been very dedicated and forceful with certain players not being picked. Previous Real Madrid managers sometimes would feel pressure from above on what players need to be played for maybe commercial reasons rather than footballing reasons, whereas Zidane has, no, this is my team, these are the players I'm going to play because it's the best for the team rather than maybe for making money or shirt sales.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, James Rodriguez is probably the name that leaps off the page with regards to that. So, yeah, it's a very, very good point. Good question there, Norma. Thank you very much for that. And I think we've got two more. No, just the one more, actually. This comes from some good friends I've recently got to know, Gooners in the USA podcast. So no surprises who they support, but some American gentlemen, top guys as well. Really enjoy their podcast. And we had a little bit of WWE banter on their podcast this week. So I fired them a question and they've swung it back. So I'm not going to ask you to answer this, John, because frankly, I don't think you could give me an answer other than Hulk Hogan. So I'm going to answer this instead. And they wanted to ask, after last week's EFL game, is Southampton the James Ellsworth to Arsenal's AJ Styles? And technically, this question is more aimed at the English breakfast, but I'm going to twist it, and I'm going to say to you, the James Ellsworth. Okay, so you've got to pick a team from SerieA that would be the James Ellsworth. Now, James Ellsworth is that guy who is kind of weird looking, so he's not very he doesn't really catch the eye. He's not much to look at. He looks a bit weird, looks like a bit of a geek. He's kind of an underdog who just constantly gets fluky victories. So who would that be in SerieA?
God, an underdog that gets fluky victories.
And is a bit ugly. See, I'm thinking Udinese.
They don't get that lucky very often.
No, that's true. Actually, they don't. Definitely not Palermo.
This might be a little bit controversial because I know lots of people like their kit, but I can't stand it. It's Sampdoria.
Oh yeah, okay, good shout.
I really don't like their kit.
No, I that's a good shout actually. Yeah, that's a good one. The AJ Styles. Okay, so this is the guy who's basically the figurehead of the company. Always good work rate. Consistently has good matches. Is one of the most technically gifted people that you can always rely on. So, all those things in mind, who would that be in Italy? Don't say Juventus.
Yeah, well, I know you said work rate rather than flash, so. No, I was about to say Roma, but they're not really consistent. Oh god,
Napoli?
No, Napoli are a flash team. They're not workmanlike, are they? Fiorentina, no. They can be workmanlike at times. I suppose actually Roma can be as well. Oh,
see, bear in mind AJ is the champion, so he is kind of the figurehead and the standard bearer for the company right now.
Oh, so okay. Well, yeah, it would have to be Juventus then.
Yeah.
I mean, I would definitely say if you went back a few years, then Inter Milan would be that resoundingly, particularly under Mourinho. That would describe them perfectly.
Fair point. I could do the same question for France very quickly. It's very easy. The James Ellsworth, St Etienne all day long, and Nice or Monaco you could have as the AJ Styles. I'd probably go with Monaco right now. So there you go, Gooners in USA. We have butchered your question to bits and done it our own way. Hope you like the answer. Right, okay. We will leave it there then. I struggle to understand how we've gone so long with just the two of us, John. But nevertheless, we've tried our best to entertain our listeners this week in the absence of our other friends. So I think we've done a good job overall, haven't we? I think we've got through it all.
Just about. I apologise, listeners, for anything I've butchered, pronounced wrong, or got completely wrong information wise.
I will second that. Yeah, for me, not for you, of course. But yeah, no, I think we've done a good job. So we of course appreciate your feedback. So listeners, if you've enjoyed this style of the podcast and you want to hear it a little bit more, let us know. Can't promise, but we'll see what we can do. So let us know your thoughts. A couple of special shout outs. One goes to Noma, who've already asked us a question. Another one to Eric Alfisi, who has they both complimented our own Ross. If you haven't listened to the English Breakfast podcast, please do. For a couple of other people who they will know who they are, but particularly a gentleman who is called Daniel Chalkley, and our friend Stefan Selby, you'll get a bit more of a mention at the English Breakfast this weekend when we do on the show, because I know you've emailed us as well. But we've had some absolutely brilliant feedback for Ross's breakdown of Pep Guardiola and the current issues at Manchester City. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, please do and share it. I genuinely think it's some of our best work. Ross's best work. I just sat there and listened. It was fantastic. But please do. I know, John, you've heard it, and it was brilliant, wasn't it? It wasn't biased. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Very honest, very accurate, and some basically fantastic journalism. So well played, Ross. We massively appreciate your work, and keep it up, my good man. So our thanks to Ross. As always, we have to thank Absent Friends. Once again, we wish Tom all the best in his future, and of course with Drew not being able to join us tonight, and of course Kelly, Gaz, and Var as well for their work behind the scenes, and of course Kat as well. I nearly left Kat out. Sorry, Kat. And finally, John, we have a challenge for our listeners, don't we?
Yes.
We're looking to spread the word of the Hipsters podcast. So we have asked you, we've put a poll up on our Twitter account, which is currently still running, which is just to get an idea of how much content you lovely girls and guys want to listen to us over the festive period, because our leagues are coming to a winter break at the moment. And we've had amazing 142 votes. That's fantastic, by the way. Thank you so much. So currently, people want more English breakfasts over the Christmas period. So if you haven't voted in our poll, get on and vote in that now. There's 2 days left of that poll at the time of recording. And our YouTube channel. So we're looking to grow our audience. We're going to mention our iTunes and SoundCloud another day, but we've got 330 subscribers, John. We're looking to get 500, aren't we? So yeah. You're the tech person. How can people subscribe to us on YouTube?
It's very simple. You go to our YouTube channel, which obviously we always post links for whenever we put up new pods. You can find that very easily. Or you can go to youtube.com/ the FH podcast, I believe, if that's correct. I will double check that now. And all you have to do is hit the subscribe button, and that's it. Simple. Doesn't cost you any money. It will cost you about 5 seconds of your time, or maybe 10 if your internet's really slow. You can do it on your phone as well if you like. But that's it. Yeah, it just helps us. It means we get out to more listeners. We're more likely to pop up on the front page occasionally, that kind of thing. Or when people are searching for football-related stuff, they're more likely to see us the more subscribers we have. And also, you don't have to have it on, but there's even an option where you can have a little notification where it tells you when a new video has been posted. But yeah, yes. That's up to you, obviously.
Yeah, that of course works with all smartphones nowadays. Where you get a little ping comes up saying that you uploaded new content, so which you can do on SoundCloud as well. But yeah, please do hit the subscribe. And if you like what we do, give us a thumbs up on YouTube as well. That's always helpful. Even if you're a SoundCloud or iTunes listener, we want to get that subscription up to the big 500. So 330 now, which is amazing, and we really appreciate all of you. But if we can get you up to if we get ourselves up to 500, that would be ace. So please do us a favour and get on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Right, John, we'll wrap it there because it's ridiculous o'clock here in the UK on a Monday night. So we'll let our lovely listeners go at this point. So thank you very, very much for tuning in. Once again, thanks for sticking by us tonight. It's been a bit of a mishmash show, but we hope you've enjoyed it. Keep that feedback coming. Keep tuned into all of our content. We'll be back on the Sunday with the English Breakfast podcast, and of course we'll tweet as we go along as well, and any feedback as always is very welcome. So my thanks to John for putting up with me once again. Thank you, John.
Not a problem. Enjoyed it.
Good stuff. And as we haven't been saying recently, but we will say it this time, keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back with you very soon.